Folks, it's Gerry Adams here, just to update you on the outworkings of the success of my case against the British Broadcasting Corporation. And in my opinion, it's a very important and very significant breach in that institution's monopoly on how it broadcasts news, especially in Ireland. As I said outside the four courts, I took this case to put manners on this institution, and I stand over that comment. I reject the over-the-top responses to it. The British Broadcasting Corporation is supposed to be a public service provider. It's paid from public funds. It upholds the ethos of the British state in Ireland, that goes without saying almost, but it should be publicly accountable for its broadcasting content. It rarely is. That's what this court case did. That's what the jury did. The BBC lost. Fair journalism was a victor, not a loser, but only if the lessons are learned and acted upon. When the case began 6 weeks ago, the BBC's legal strategy was evident very quickly. Their narrative was that pursued by successive British and Irish governments for years. They blamed everything during the conflict on Irish Republicans, and by extension during this trial, on me. The BBC lawyers embarked on a Jesuitical presentation of the case that tried to convince the jurors that the words broadcast and published by the British Broadcasting Corporation, that I had sanctioned the murder of Dennis Donaldson, did not in fact mean that I sanctioned the murder of Dennis Donaldson. They said, that's the British Broadcasting Corporation, not defending the truth of the accusation. Instead, they were defending, they claimed, their journalism, which they went on to say was fair and reasonable and in the public interest and made in good faith. They concluded their case by trying to exert moral pressure on the jurors by claiming that a defeat for the British Broadcasting Corporation would be a blow to freedom of speech and a setback to victims. In the end, the jury didn't buy into any of this. On all the key issues, the jurors unanimously accepted that the script used by the Spotlight programme did mean that I had sanctioned and approved the murder of Dennis Donaldson. They also accepted that the words published on the BBC website on the 21st of September 2016 meant that I sanctioned and approved the murder of Dennis Donaldson, and that, as I understand it, that is still in circulation. When asked if the BBC broadcast these words in good faith, and was it fair and reasonable to publish these words, the answer of the jury was a resounding no. Freedom of expression and freedom of the press are very precious principles. They are fundamental to any democratic society. Consequently, journalists bear an onerous responsibility not to make false accusations based on unreliable and or non-existent supporting evidence. To do otherwise means that they are behaving in support of methods that they purport to oppose. Every day, journalists risk their lives in many parts of the world trying to expose wrongdoing by the states and by non-state agencies, criminal gangs and drug cartels. In our own place, Veronica Guerin, Martin O'Hagan and Lyra McKee were killed and others have been threatened. We've also had ample experience over decades of how political censorship by the Irish and British governments, ruthlessly enforced by state broadcasters, including the BBC and others, covered up the truth of state torture, state murder, collusion and sectarian killings. In other parts of the world, scores of journalists are killed or imprisoned each year trying to shine a light on the truth. Over 165 journalists have been killed deliberately in Gaza in Israel's genocidal war against the Palestinian people. So I know many journalists. I like to think that I am friendly with the vast majority of them, and I wish them well, and I defend their right to do their job. For many years, when I was wrongly represented in sections of the media, my legal advice was consistently not to sue for libel. 9 years ago, the British Broadcasting Corporation put out their Spotlight programme, and I decided to sue. Had the BBC wanted, they could have resolved this there and then. They choose not to. Why? That's a question to be asked. Why did they not resolve this issue when they could have? Was it arrogance? Yes, that's part of it. But I also suspect political interference. In January, the British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, responded to a decision in the High Court in Belfast which concluded that I, and by implication up to 400 other former internees, were wrongfully detained and that we were entitled to compensation. This followed the decision by the British Supreme Court that I had been unlawfully detained in the 1970s. Mr. Starmer told the British Parliament that he would look at every conceivable way to block compensation being paid. Leading up to and during this trial, I've been very conscious of the trauma of all of this on the Donaldson family and other victims. I've urged the Minister for Justice in Dublin to meet Dennis Donaldson's family. They have been denied Article 2 compliant inquests since 2006, and surely that can't be right. All victims and their families deserve our support, and there's an onus on the two governments and all of us, including me, to work to help them in the time ahead. There's also an onus on the BBC to reflect on the changes that have occurred since the Good Friday Agreement. This isn't the same place as it was then. Adam Smith should begin a process of changing the ethos of the BBC to make it reflect the new dispensation here and the potential that the peace process has delivered. There's also been predictable responses from all the usual suspects to the verdict in this case. That this is not the time, even though this is what they do, this is not the time to defend bad journalism. This is the time to learn the lessons. They too should stop whinging. This is senior hurling. All of us need to face up to the new dispensation and build on the progress that has been made. And finally, again, Gerry, I want to thank Colette and our family for their patience over many years, but in particular during the last 9 years while this case has been going on. I want to thank my legal team, my solicitors Seamus Collins and Paul Tweed, my senior counsel Tom Hogan and Declan Doyle, junior counsel John Kerr and Brian Carroll, and the team from Johnson's, Carl Rooney, Dara Carney, Hugh O'Hare and Sarah Watson, and Richard McCauley and Chris. As for the money that the jury awarded me in damages, I will donate this to good causes. These will include the children of Gaza, groups in Ireland involved in helping the homeless, and Common Cara, the Irish language sector, and other projects like this in West Belfast. Sinné Harja, Chifi Mehu, agus Luri Me Latsa Arish, Slán, agus Tug Go Bugge.